I never thought a single phone call could change my life so completely, until it did on the morning of my 17th birthday. The air was crisp and just beginning to warm with the promise of spring, and I was excited for the day ahead. My old man had promised me breakfast at that new diner downtown, and honestly, I was already thinking about the blueberry pancakes. But everything screeched to a halt when my phone rang just as I was about to leave the house. I didn't recognize the number, and for a moment I considered letting it go to voicemail. But something, I don't know what, made me answer. Hello? The voice was unfamiliar, hesitant, and low. A woman's voice, maybe in her late 30s or early 40s, but tired, like she'd been holding something heavy for years. Is this Mark's daughter? She asked, her voice brittle with concern. I, I think you should know, he has another family. I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. My dad having another family? That had to be a mistake. A sick joke, maybe. I laughed nervously. Who is this? I asked, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. My name's Linda, she said. Jason's mom. I'm sorry to drop this on you like this, but I wanted you to hear it from me first. The name hit me like a blow. Jason, my classmate, the quiet kid with unruly hair who sat 2 rows ahead in math class. I stared at my phone, frozen. I had known Jason all year, seen him nearly every day, never imagining he was connected to my family in any way. What? What do you mean another family? I managed. There's a reason your dad kept this secret. I can tell you more if you want, but I understand if you're angry or shocked. I just wanted you to know. I didn't know what to say. My mind was spinning. Could it really be true? How had my dad hidden this for so long? And more importantly, why? For hours after that call, I replayed every moment I'd shared with Jason, trying to find clues I'd missed, signs that might have revealed the truth. The more I thought, the more everything felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. Finally, I decided the only way forward was to confront my dad. I asked him to meet me after school, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. I needed answers. When I saw him, I could tell he'd been waiting for this day too. His smile was tight, his eyes tired. He sighed heavily, then began to speak. Mark, what is going on? I got a call today that you have another family. Is that true? Dad looked down at his hands, then back at me. Yes, it's true. I didn't want you to find out this way. He told me about a past I never knew, a relationship he'd kept secret, a different life he'd built years ago. He spoke of Linda, their kids, how life got complicated, how he'd tried to keep both sides from hurting. And then he said the words I never imagined hearing. Jason is your half-brother. At that moment, everything shattered. The world I thought I knew crumbled, replaced by a complex, messy new reality. After the shattering revelation on my 17th birthday, the days that followed felt like walking through a fog. Every familiar thing suddenly colored with suspicion and confusion. Determined to understand the truth, I started digging into the hidden traces of the other family my dad had kept secret. My search began with small clues. An old photo tucked in a forgotten drawer, a series of letters my dad had never mentioned, and social media posts that painted a picture of a life he didn't share with me. There was Linda, the mother of the other family, and 2 kids, one of whom was Jason, my quiet classmate with the unruly hair. Suddenly, Jason's distant presence at school made sense. When I confronted my dad, his usual evasiveness shattered. He sighed, his defenses crumbling, as he laid bare the years of secrecy. He spoke of his relationship with Linda, how it had started before my own parents married, how circumstances had pulled them apart but hadn't erased the bond or his responsibility. He talked about the pain of living divided between 2 worlds, trying not to hurt either family, yet causing pain all the same. Seeing photos of Jason and his sibling was like looking into a mirror. The shared features between Jason and me were undeniable, a silent testament to the life my dad had hidden from me. I felt a bewildering mix of emotions, betrayal, curiosity, sadness, and a strange sense of connection. School became complicated. Jason and I were no longer just classmates. We were half-brothers navigating the uncharted territory of a newly revealed family tie. Every interaction carried an undercurrent of questions. How should we act? Were we rivals or allies? Could we build a real relationship? Whispers followed us through the halls. Some classmates sensed the shift, others speculated. But for Jason and me, the challenge was internal, learning to relate to each other beyond the secret we now shared. We started spending time together, volunteering for school projects, and studying side by side. Slowly, the awkwardness gave way to tentative trust. At home, the distance between the two families remained wide, but my dad made efforts to bridge the gap. Weekends began to alternate between the two households, and though the visits were tentative, they were real. Our family dinners grew louder with new voices, new stories, and new beginnings. The truth hurt, but it also opened a path for healing. We had to learn forgiveness and accept the messy complexity of human relationships. I realized that family isn't always about perfection. It's about honesty, effort, and sometimes painful growth. The days after the revelation were some of the hardest I'd ever faced. At school, the halls suddenly felt smaller, the eyes of classmates like whispers chasing after me every time I passed. Jason and I were under an unspoken spotlight. No longer just classmates, but something more complicated, something neither of us fully understood yet. At first, we barely spoke outside of the necessary, group projects, passing in the hallways, occasional nods. The label half-brother was heavy, weighted with expectation and confusion. How were we supposed to act? Would we resent each other? Were we supposed to be close or keep our distance? Some days the silence between us was a protective shield. Other days it was a barrier that hurt more than it healed. I noticed Jason watching me sometimes, probably wondering the same things I was. Slowly we started to break the ice. Small shared moments in class, quiet conversations about schoolwork, favorite music, or even silly jokes. But the challenge wasn't just between us. The rumors started almost immediately. Whispers like, "Did you hear about Mark's other family?" floated through the hallways, sometimes becoming cruel jokes, sometimes just gossip. Friends I thought I could trust looked at me with new eyes, their sympathy mixed with curiosity or judgment. Jason, too, was navigating his way through the shock and shifting social dynamics. One afternoon, our science teacher paired us for a biology project. It was the first time we really had to talk, not about family secrets or uncomfortable truths, but about cells and mitochondria. As we worked, the focus on something neutral gave us a small break from the emotional weight. "That gene mutation section is tough," Jason said softly. "Yeah, but you're good at this kind of stuff," I replied. He smiled, a bit shy, and for the first time felt like, well, a brother. At home, things were no easier. Dad struggled to balance time between families. Weekends at our house, alternate Sundays at Linda's. It was awkward at first, with both families feeling like they were testing boundaries, uncertain how to mesh. Dinner conversations were strained, with Dad trying hard to make everyone feel included. But the undercurrent of mistrust still lingered. Linda was kind when we met, but the history between her and Dad was visible in her cautious smiles. Jason looked hopeful but reserved, and I realized both of us were feeling our way toward what brotherhood, even this uneasy new kind, could mean. Despite the difficulties, there were moments of surprising warmth. Slowly, the four of us, Dad, Linda, Jason, and me, found small ways to connect, like sharing stories from childhood, laughing at silly mistakes, or just sitting quietly in the same room, learning to be comfortable with each other. I knew the road ahead would be long and complicated. Trust wouldn't build overnight, and not everyone would accept this new family arrangement without resistance. But for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope that Jason and I could step beyond uncertainty and start forging something real. The months that followed the revelation were a test of patience, forgiveness, and the messy, beautiful work of rebuilding broken bridges. What once felt like two separate worlds, my dad's two families, slowly began to overlap in ways I never thought possible. At home, Dad was trying harder than ever. Weekend visits weren't just obligations anymore. They were opportunities to bridge the distance between our family and Linda's. Though it was awkward at first, awkward smiles, tentative conversations, cautious attempts at humor, those moments piled up into something real. Linda and I had another meeting at a small cafe, away from prying eyes and the tension of our homes. She talked about her fears, that we might never fully accept each other, that the past would always hang over us like a storm cloud. I told her honestly that I wasn't sure where this new version of family fit, but I wanted to try. That willingness to try made a difference. Jason and I found a fragile rhythm together, growing closer through shared experiences and quiet talk. We volunteered for the same community service club and teamed up for a school play, finding moments where our sibling bond could grow without being forced. Each awkward, clumsy step brought us closer to something genuine. One evening, after a long day of rehearsals, Jason and I sat on my porch steps, the cool night air soft around us. "Crazy, huh?" he said, glancing at me. "Yeah," I laughed. "Didn't sign up for this when school started." He nodded, "But I'm glad we're figuring it out." That simple acceptance, no dramatics, no pressure, was the beginning of real brotherhood. At school, the whispers quieted, replaced by an undercurrent of respect. People saw that Jason and I weren't just awkward strangers forced together by circumstance. We were becoming a unit, stronger because we faced the outsider gaze together. Dad worked hard to make things right, joining family counseling sessions with both households. It wasn't just letting bygones be bygones. It was about understanding the pain his secrecy caused, about learning how to communicate honestly, and about making space for both families to heal. Slowly, dinners became more frequent with both families around the table. Kids from both sides learned each other's names, shared stories about school, music, and dreams. Laughter came easier, and even mistakes, overcooked meals or forgotten dates, were met with forgiveness instead of frustration. I realized more than anything that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up again and again with openness and love, even when it's hard. The truth had hurt us deeply, but it didn't destroy us. Instead, it forced us to grow in ways we wouldn't have chosen, but ultimately needed. One afternoon, Jason and I stood side by side, watching Dad teaching his younger son how to ride a bike in the park. The sun was warm on our backs, and the air smelled of fresh grass and new beginnings. For the first time since all of this started, I felt a calm settle inside me. Not the sharp edges of betrayal or confusion, but a quiet hope. Maybe family was more complicated than I thought. Maybe it was messy and imperfect, but it was ours, and that was enough. That was